Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is Paul Hoyt, your host. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recording slides and exercises are archived in our members area, and all the recordings are available on my YouTube channel for now at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. We're getting a lot of advice and recommendation from mentors and people who really know about such things that say that I should take the majority of these and put these behind the covers, put them in the membership area of our website, which I believe that we are going to do here pretty quickly, and invite people to have access to those office hours presentations, all of the previous past ones, by either subscribing to it as a member of the system or getting a lifetime membership, which we grant to every client that spends $1,000 or more with us in any way, whether it be a coaching package or one of our business plans or financial models or anything else we do. Anytime somebody spends over $1,000 with us, they get a free lifetime membership to our Office Hours Tribe, which means access to all of the 117 recordings that are there before today's, which will go up later on tonight. The reasons we do the Office Hours presentations is that we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. Tough as nails oftentimes, and you need education, training, team, and tools in order to be successful. And we want you to get to know us, because when you do, you will know that first and most importantly, we really do care about you. We really do want you to be successful, whatever that means to you, in all of the areas of life. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these office hours presentations to be beneficial to you in any way, please pass the word, because we want to help as many people as we possibly can. And it's always free to come and listen to the office hours presentations. It's only the distant recordings that we're going to put behind the curtain and require some sort of a fee for services engagement for people to get a hold of. But we always want to help as many people as we possibly can, and we have a lot of different free programs in addition to office hours to help them do that. So please pass the word. Help us help other people. I know that they will be glad that you did. Our office hours agendas are usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle, where we offer then some closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session. And then we go into open Q&A and coaching. Today's a little bit different because it's all about Q&A and coaching. We encourage you to join us in between the office hours in the Awakened CEO community on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we publish a business success principle of the day 4 times a week. And we do an energy of the day posting every single day on Facebook. That's part of my morning scheduled routine. I don't know if you have a morning routine or not, but I certainly encourage you to get one. Mine takes about 35 to 45 minutes because I have a long list of 15 or 20 things that I do. And one of the things on my list is to create and publish the energy of the day posting on Facebook, trying to put forth a little inspirational or insightful message to other people. Today's topic, as I mentioned, is open Q&A and live group coaching. We always try to relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of success, and today everything is fair game. So you're welcome to ask any questions that you would like on leadership, financial management, marketing, sales, operations, product development, customer service, anything and everything that you'd like to ask about business, we'll be happy to cover. And of course, since we have the Awakened CEO system, you're also welcome to ask any questions that you have about mindset and methods and momentum, about performance, about personal growth and spiritual growth. Because we here at the Hoyt Management Group are not just business consultants, but we're also personal coaches. We're not only focused on helping you build a profitable and scalable business, we're also interested in helping you reach your potential and be the very best person that you can be and enjoy life in the best way possible. Because we really see that personal growth and business growth go hand in hand. Before we take your questions, I want to remind you just a little bit about the last several office hours presentations we did. In Office Hours 114, we talked about how to grow and expand with limited funding. In 115, we talked about high probability businesses. In 116, we talked about the book Nail It, Then Scale It. And in 117, we talked about structured conversations. That was just 1 week ago. In Office Hours 115, we talked a lot about how to expand with limited funds. We talked about how you need money to grow your business. We talked about 7 funding options and 6 funding scenarios, then summed it up to the bottom line. Those 7 funding options that we talked about are sales revenues, which is always my favorite, controlling expenses and watching the money that goes out the door, your own savings, donations, debt, which means borrowing money, your supply chain, which is really a hidden way of finding a lot of extra cash, is extracting money from your supply chain. We also talked about selling equity, which we've been helping companies create and execute their equity offerings for about the last 13 or 14 years. So we got a lot of valuable experience when it comes to that. We also talked about very specific funding scenarios. If you have a job, you don't have a job, you don't have any money and nothing to sell, which is a pretty nasty place to be. We talked about being gainfully employed with limited savings, being in startup mode but running out of cash. We talked about being in business but running out of cash and running out of credit, in business but desperate, and the last one we talked about was growing rapidly and needing money to take advantage of opportunities. So if you find yourself in a position of really needing a lot of money to build the business of your dreams, we strongly recommend that you go back and listen to Office Hours 114. And certainly if you have any questions on that, you're welcome to ask them today. Office Hours 115 was on high probability businesses. We talked about the challenge of growing a business, the hidden numbers, in which I think I related that I think that the failure rate of businesses is upward of 90%. Most of the time we think it's only 50%, but I think it's much, much higher than that, especially when you count the home-based businesses and the network marketing businesses that people want to get into. And of the people who survive, I think they struggle a lot. We took a look at a lot of businesses because some of them are very high probability of being successful and others are not. And we came up with personal success factors and business success factors. This is the most important slide from that presentation, is a recognition that mature franchises and existing businesses and professional corporations and funeral homes and micro businesses in developing countries have an extremely high probability of success, and other businesses have an extremely low probability of success. Network marketing businesses, agents like insurance agents and real estate agents, business opportunities, inventors, authors, musicians, and artists have a low probability of success. And by the way, so do high-tech startups. Even when they've got millions of dollars funded in them, they have a fairly low probability of success. And in the middle, we have restaurants, retail stores, and new franchises. That's really important because not all businesses are created the same. Some are far more complex than others. And, you know, it's one thing to say that, hey, I want to build a house, but believe me, building a 15-room mansion isn't the same as building a 2-bedroom bungalow. Building a 50-story office building is not the same as building a strip mall. They take different expertises, different geniuses, and a whole bunch of different experience because some are far, far more complex than others. In Office Hours 116, we talked about Nail It, Then Scale It, one of the books that I really liked by Paul Ahlstrom and Nathan Furr. We talked a little bit about the authors. We talked about the myths of entrepreneurship that they dictated, the primary reasons startups fail, the characteristics of successful startups, and insights from decades of experience, and then the steps in the Nail It, Then Scale It process and fundamental concepts that they had in their Nail It, Then Scale It growth process. One of the big principles we talked about was the iterative approach. Don't just think about we're going to start today and we're just going to go, you know, step by step by step until we finish. Think about doing things in cycles, in circles, in iterations, and especially the steps in their Nail It, Then Scale It growth process, where first you nail the pain, and then step number 2 is to nail the solution, and then we nail the go-to-market strategy and nail the business market model at each step in the way, engaging with the marketplace so that we can learn what the marketplace has to teach us, and then and only then do we scale it. Last week we talked about structured conversations, a recognition on my part that, hey, there's a whole bunch of ways that we can structure our communications with each other and have a process by which we can ensure that we each are heard fairly and that we have facilitated, great communication. And we talked about that, in several different ways. We talked about the importance of having structured conversations so that we do communicate with each other to make sure that we get the best possible outcome and the best possible relationship. We talked about formal facilitated conversations, personal conversations, and sales conversations. With formal facilitated conversations, we talked about facilitated planning sessions, like the strategic planning sessions that we do. We talked about debates, legal proceedings, mediations, and conflict resolution, which are many of the ways in which there's a formal facilitated conversation or communication. We also talked about personal conversations, which may or may not be facilitated. We talked about the couples dialogue, the UCR, the UCD system, the TCD system, compassionate communications, one of my very favorite by Marshall Rosenberg, the compliment sandwich, and our new Awakened CEO communications process. And in sales conversations, we talked about hot customer process, dealing with people who called up and are really, really angry with you. We talked about the classic sales process, the free sessions that sell process by Christian Michelson, and the collaborative closing process by Frank Kern. So that was a quick reminder of the last several office hours presentations that we have done. Hopefully those reminders will spur you to ask a question or two during our live coaching call today, because we really do want to answer the questions that you have and do the best job that we can possibly do to help you move forward in your business. With that, Stephanie, do we have any questions? I know we have had a couple, because there's a couple that have been emailed in, but do we have any questions first from the people on the call and then any of the emailed questions that we have?
Yep, we do.
All right.
Getting started. All right, first one. What do you think the number one thing that holds people back from their success is?
The number one thing that I have seen hold people back from their success is their fear. Fear is what causes us to hang on to doing things in the way that we've always done them. Fear is the thing that keeps us from picking up the phone and making that sales call. Fear is the thing that keeps us from getting out on stage and doing a presentation. Fear is that thing that keeps us from spending money when we know that we really could and should to move the business forward. It keeps us from, hiring people, and it keeps us from firing people. Keeps us from making the tough decisions because we're afraid. We're afraid we're making a bad decision. We're afraid that, somebody's not going to like us. We're afraid that we're going to be judged by other people. There's all kinds of fears that come up. That's why being in business for yourself is such a rich, rich opportunity to work on yourself, to become a stronger person, because you're always going to be asked to do something you've never done before, and almost always that brings a little hesitation, a little resistance, and sometimes debilitating fear that just stops us in our tracks. And that's why it's so, so important for you to have a coach that you're working with, somebody that can not only help you learn the things that you need to learn in order to do the things that you need to do, but can also hold your hand and talk through the process of overcoming your fears, because we all need that. And by the way, when I say all, I mean all of us. That means me too. I've been in business for 50 years. I've been working on myself for 50 years, and I still come up with these little times where I sense a little hesitation or a little resistance or a little bit of, why am I resisting and doing that? It's always curious to me, but the answer is almost always fear. That's why I'm not sending the email. That's why I'm not asking somebody to honor their debt with me. That's why I'm not making the tough decision that I know I should have made a couple of weeks ago. And even at this fairly advanced time in life, at least in life, if not advanced in terms of consciousness and wisdom and knowledge and business savvy and all that other stuff, I still run into little moments of hesitation, and it's always that fear. So, when we men in our society, and I see that certainly when I look online here, I see that there are a lot of men on the call and a couple of ladies as well. But for men, it's tough for us to admit that we have these fears, because when we grow up, it's big boys don't cry, and you should show any weakness, your shark bait, for example, in a corporate setting. But the truth is that we all feel them. We all suffer from them. We all get blocked by them periodically. And working with a therapist or coach is oftentimes the only way. It's certainly the quickest way, but sometimes it's the only way to get out of your way and do the things that you know that you need to do to move forward in your business. So if you find yourself gulping every once in a while, if you sense that you're under a lot of stress or feeling some anxiety, then by all means get yourself a coach. And of course, we'd love to talk to you about how we can support you. But, whether it's us or somebody else, get the support you need in order to reach your potential so that you can build the business of your dreams. Thanks for that question, Steffi. Next question.
Okay. I am working with someone who is entirely unreasonable to the point that I am questioning their sanity and mine. What can I do? And I'm only giggling because I've been there so many times.
Yeah, well, there are people who are unreasonable. They are a little bit crazy in some way. In fact, I remember writing one of my insights in a Practice of Awakening book that says, hey, we're all crazy in our own little ways. We have these subconscious crap going on in our head about, addictions to approval and addictions to being clever and addictions to drama and excitement. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on in your subconscious mind. At least there is in mine, and I suspect strongly there is in yours too, that comes up. So people are a little bit crazy, from time to time. And if you find yourself working with somebody that just has you questioning your own sanity, then it may be time for you to get out of that relationship because it has become toxic to you in some way. I know that I have a burning desire to understand. I love to figure things out. I am addicted to my own cleverness as much as anybody has ever been addicted to their own cleverness because I feel better about myself. I feel stronger whenever I learn something new, and especially when I'm able to apply that knowledge. So when things are confusing to me, when I just don't get it because somebody's being crazy, it bugs the crap out of me. And I try to get out of those relationships, as quickly as possible. But I would say that there's, one other possibility here, and that's the possibility that the person that you're dealing with is really not crazy. They're just shining you on. They're pushing your buttons. They're acting crazy. They're acting irrational because they know that it pisses you off or know that it keeps you off balance in some way. I have run across some people in my life who are that way, that were simply like taking an untenable, irrational, unreasonable position and maintaining it as the truth and maintaining it as their dogma, their way. This is the way it's got to be for you too. And they fully knew that it was irrational. They were just doing it to push the buttons. I think some people do that consciously. I think some people do it unconsciously. And so you might want to consider that possibility as well. But generally speaking, 95% of the time, when you're working with somebody that is unreasonable and is just not making any sense to you, after you've attempted a few structured conversations, and I strongly encourage you to go back and listen to Office Hours 117 on structured conversations, after you've attempted that a few times and it's just not working, then it's quite possibly time for you to get out of that relationship and go somewhere where it feels safer. I had a good friend of mine just a couple of weeks ago said, he said, I'm just shying away from business deals that aren't fun and aren't exciting. I think he said aren't fun and aren't easy, but often new business is rarely easy, but it can be pretty exciting. If it's fun and exciting to work with a person, then work with them. If it's not fun and exciting, if it's a pain in the ass to work with them, then find a way not to work with them. That's one of the reasons that we have our own businesses, right? Is because we don't have to work for very long with people that we don't want to work with. We engage with a client. We have the opportunity to disengage with that client after we have finished our engagement in some way, or after we have reached some sort of a settlement of withdrawal in some way. That's one of the wonderful things about being in business with for ourselves, is the opportunity to disengage with somebody that just does not serve us, and it certainly sounds like that this person is not serving your sanity. So serve your sanity, first. Take care of yourself first, so that you have the greater ability to take care of other people. That's a good question. There are people out there that have me question my sanity every once in a while, and I shake my head at once or twice a week, that's for sure. So, Stephanie, next question.
You know, you and I were chatting about this the other day, that it should be fun and easy to do, and easy might not necessarily mean that it's easy work, but that it's easy to get up every morning and with an eagerness and excitement about whatever challenges or whatever tasks are on our plates for that day.
Amen to that. Well said. Thank you.
And next question. People buy my training and then they don't use it. Why is that? Amen. What can I do to get them to open the box, consume the material, and do the work?
That's a tough question. And I'm first of all, it's a great question to ask, and I want to honor you for actually asking the question, because there's a lot of people who sell their information products and sell their workshops and seminars and sell their advice, and they're really more interested in selling stuff than they are helping other people. So, when you're just interested in the sales and making the money, you don't really care whether or not somebody else gets any value from what you're doing at all. What you care about, if they say something disparaging on Yelp or on LinkedIn or Facebook, you care about that because you care about your reputation, and you have to have reputation management. But you really don't care whether they get any value out of it or not. You got their money, that's great. And some people are honestly that way. Other people, like you, like me, care a great deal about whether or not people are getting value from your products and services. So there is this burning question of, somebody bought my information product, they spent a few $100, they spent several $1,000s, they spent tens of thousands of dollars, and they're not doing the work. They're maybe not even opening the box. And that's one of the huge issues in the personal development industry, is that I think they did a survey once, or it's common knowledge, and I don't know where this came from, so I don't know if it's scientific or not, but the common knowledge is that as many as 80% of the people who buy these information products never consume them. They go on the shelf and they become shelfware, and they're never consumed at all. So why is that? Why do people do that? I think it's because of a couple of things. Number one is, we talked about fear earlier. It takes a lot of courage for somebody to write that $5,000 check or write that $1,000 check, but it takes even more courage for them to actually open the box and listen to the materials. And it takes even more courage for them to actually follow the recommendations and do the work that are in those materials. So at some point in time along the way, they had enough courage to get started, but they don't have enough courage to take that next step. And that's one of the reasons why I really am a huge advocate of coaching. And that's somebody to work with you on a committed basis over a reasonably long period of time to help you make sure that you get the value from that, to help you make sure that you are finding somebody there who can help you overcome those blocks and obstacles and get rid of that crap that's tying you down and holding you back, so that you can gain the value from those products and services and move forward in your life. A few office hours ago, and I don't remember the number, we did a presentation on the book Change or Die. And in that, they talked about how oftentimes the techniques that we use to motivate somebody and inspire somebody, can work really well up to a point, but then if they really have a strong addiction, it takes a totally different approach in order to help them get over that. So, if you're having, if you are a coach, or if you need a coach, that Change or Die presentation might be most helpful to you as well. But to come back to your question, The reason why people don't do it is because at some point in time, their fear blocked them. They had enough courage to buy it. They had enough courage to write the check, but they don't have enough courage to consume it, and they don't have enough courage, to consume it over a long period of time and actually follow the advice and get the results. And that's a real shame. By the way, one of the things that some people do, one of the things that one of my best buddies did is he said, what works for me is I just spend an outrageous amount of money on what it is that I've purchased, because if I've written a check for $50,000 or $75,000, you can be damn sure that I'm going to actually do the work, because I couldn't live with myself if I spent that money and didn't get the value on the other end of it. So, I don't particularly recommend that, but I do know that sometimes if you're just spending $100 or $150 or $250, it's pretty easy to leave that behind and chalk it up to saying, it was only $250. But when it's $50,000, you don't have that opportunity so much. So, that might be something that works for you. I think it's not really something that I recommend. I mostly recommend that you get a coach and make a reasonably long-term commitment to that coach, 3 months, 6 months. Don't know that I'm a big fan of annual coaching engagements, because most of the time I think that you run out of gas after 4 or 5 or 6 months, but I am a big fan of at least 90-day engagements on the coaching. Stephanie, do you have any comments or insights for us before we move on to the next question?
This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. And I think it really comes from your own motivation. I know that whenever I do something, I always tell myself, I'm here, I'm doing this. And if my time is invested, then I better make dang sure that I take as much advantage of that as much as possible. Otherwise, why am I here? Otherwise, I know that I'll just go to bed frustrated and unhappy because I didn't give it my all that day. And I think for most of us in this kind of conversation at this level, we've already made that commitment to ourselves to give it our all and to go ahead and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And that's just another piece of that kind of commitment. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and boy, that reminds me just to tell people to make that commitment to yourself. Every morning, I talked about this earlier, every morning when I get up, I have a 20-point checklist that I go through of things that I do every morning to help me perform at my very best for that day. I look at all of the blessings that I have in life. I remind myself of the things that I'm passionate about. I remind myself of the beliefs that I have and the things that I know to be true. And I remind myself of my vision for the future, the person that I want to be, the things that I want to do, and the things that I want to have. I find a way to elevate my consciousness. I find a way to transform myself. I made that commitment to myself to be at my best every single day. And I fulfill that commitment by discipline and diligence on my checklists, because I'm very, very motivated to be the best person that I can possibly be. Why? Because it feels wonderful. I mean, when you wake up every morning and you're filled with peace and joy and love and light, it is a wonderful, wonderful, healthy place to be. It's a wonderful way to live life. I do it for other people, my family and other things, but I do it a lot for myself, because it's the way that I love to live life. And I encourage you to live life in that same way, to be disciplined, to be courageous, to be committed to your highest, your best, so that you can live life in a very, very wonderful, positive way too. So that was not planned, but you certainly inspired me to share that, Stephanie, with your wonderful expression of the commitments that you have to yourself about being the best person that you can be as well.
It's so much easier, isn't it? I found that having that kind of commitment and living our life in this way is just, it's just easier.
It's a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it's a whole lot easier. Yeah,
If,
and you're going to have to call us and ask us how
the
or
what?
why that is. Okay, next question.
Okay.
A guy promised to invest in my company, but he keeps delaying writing me a check. How do I get the money?
Well,
Show me the money, baby.
yeah, go get the money. I think there's a couple of different answers to that question. One is, how do you get the money from him? And the other one is, where do I go get the money, period. So generally speaking, I do not recommend that you only have one iron in the fire. If you're raising money, then you should be out making lots and lots and lots of presentations. I attended a class on valuations, business valuations, early stage startup business valuations specifically last Thursday night, because I'm continually still growing and learning. This guy was great. His name's Jeff Faust. He's a certified valuation analyst, and I love the presentation. Um, One of the points that he made during that presentation was that you should always be making a lot of presentations. He says that the average person here in Silicon Valley has to make 50 presentations before they get that first check. So answer number one to how do I get the money is, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You don't just have one iron in the fire, that you're out every single day talking to potential investors and creating a long, long list of pipeline of investors. So if you're in sales, for example, we know the power of the pipeline. You just don't take an opportunity, nurture that opportunity, and live or die whether or not that opportunity closes or not. It's really smart to have 5 or 10 or 15 different prospects in your pipeline, and you're working all of them and nurturing all of them over time, so that, and hopefully they all come in, but all of them never do. So we want to work on multiple opportunities, so the business does not depend on this one person writing you a check. That's the first half of that question. The second half of that question is, how do I get the money from this one person? And I think the answer is, have a conversation with them. Have a decent, structured conversation with them and let them know what your feeling is. A good one for this one might be the Compassionate Communications by Marshall Rosenberg, also called Nonviolent Communications, where you start out and say, Joe, here's the facts. Here's, you promised it on this day, and I got to tell you, I'm feeling a little frustrated and upset that you haven't written that check. And I really need to understand, whether you're going to write me the check, and if so, when, and what's holding you back, and if there's anything I can do to move this forward. And of course, what I'd really like for you to do is write a check today. Being able to step through that process. And by the way, I just did that with Marshall Rosenberg's 4-step process. The facts, the feelings, the needs, and the request is his 4-step process. And if you practice that enough, you can do it naturally to where the other person doesn't even know that you're in a 4-step process. But go through that and find a way to communicate with them what your feelings are, what the facts are, what your fears are even, and get a really good request coming from them, and move it forward as quickly as you can, and with a sense of urgency and authenticity and compassion and passion as much as you possibly can, and do that for every opportunity that's in your pipeline of prospective investors. And don't put all of your eggs in just one basket. Before we move on to the next question, I want to talk just a little bit about what we do and how we do it. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we really do focus on the whole person. I talked about that earlier, but we're not just business consultants. We're also personal coaches and mentors as well. So, and we are also a planning and execution firm with a heavy emphasis on execution. Man, I am a project manager and a computer programmer by trade. I love to create great plans, and I hate to create plans that never get executed, because I really do realize that your success is a little bit focused on the vision that you have and a little bit on the plans that you put together, but it's really all about the execution. Every single day you need to get up and focus on your primary goals for growing your business, and put time in on making those goals happen, achieving the goals that you set out for yourself. If you need any support at all, somebody to help you create the plans, somebody to help you clarify your vision, somebody to help you execute the plans that you put in place, we'd love to have the opportunity to talk with you about that, because we are committed to you achieving what you want to achieve in life, to you performing at your very best. Next Monday, we're going to have office hours number 119. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but if you have any plans or any suggestions for what we might talk about, go to paulsurvey.com or reach out in some way to us, because we'd love to talk about the things that are most important to you. And with that, speaking about the things that are most important to you, Stephanie, do we have other questions that we might talk about?
Yep. Let's see. I am raising capital for my business, she says, but just discovered that my sales have been off the past few months and I'm concerned. Should I stop raising capital and focus on the business?
That's a tough one, and I think the answer is it depends on how much your sales were off. Because one of the things that you have to do when you're raising capital is fully disclose the status of the business, and that means the current status of the business. And typically that means financial results that are accurate within the last 90 days or so. So for example, today's, April the 25th. So I could get by maybe a little bit talking about 2015 results, but I really should be talking about Q1 results, because we're halfway through Q2, right? Is that right? No, we just started Q2. I apologize. We're only 15 days into Q2. But here pretty quickly, we're going to have to be talking about Q1 results. And you want those results to be as strong as they can possibly be. To have a bad quarter, a quarter that takes away from what we hope is a growth curve that's going up and up and up and up and up, to take away from that a little bit, if your growth was a little bit flat this quarter, then you have to have a really good reason to talk to your investors about why results were flat. But if they're really off, then maybe you really do need to suspend your capital raising activities, or at least slow them down a little bit until you can right the ship. Because you need to be able to tell a positive story. To say that, it's now May, and hey, we recognize that our results were off in January and February, but we focused some time and attention on that, and we righted the ship, and now we're back on that upward trend, is not such a bad thing to tell your investor prospects. But to not be able to address that in a positive manner and have a good positive answer for their question is not a very good thing. And by the way, I've seen that happen to a lot of businesses, and here's why. That's because if you're in business and you have revenues and you have a profit position today, you typically only have a little time and a little money to invest in the growth of your business. We want to invest in the growth of our business through the profits of our business. And in essence, when you are in business, that raising capital is a way that you are investing in the growth of your business with the excess profits that you have and the excess time that you have. But raising capital costs a lot of money. It can cost tens of thousands of dollars for you to get the education and training that you need, for the coaching that you need to get your business plan, your financial models done, to work with securities attorneys and get your offering in place, to get your intellectual property in place. I mean, it can take tens of thousands of dollars to prepare yourself to raise capital, and that's coming out of the profits of your business. It can also take a phenomenal amount of time, because as we talked about, it can take you 50, 60, 100 pitches to investors in order to get the capital that you need to move forward. I always tell my clients to be prepared to make 200 capital presentations in the next year, and that's almost one a day. And that's going to take a lot of your time. So it's pretty easy for you to take your eye off the ball and let the results of your business slip a little bit, because you're not focusing on that, because you're focusing on growing the business through raising capital. If you find that that's the case with you, then you just got some tough choices to make about whether you suspend your capital raising activities until you right the ship, or whether you go full blast into your capital raising activities because you really have to, because you can't right the ship without additional capital. Whichever choice that you make, we'd love to talk to you about ways in which we can support you in that process in improving your capital presentation, in helping you get your offering positioned correctly, to help you get your pitch deck prepared the way that you need to help evaluate, the offering that you're putting out there so that you can correct any, weaknesses in that so you can be more attractive to investors, etc. And, my hat's off to you for having a business that was profitable or is profitable and that, for some reason isn't today because the same sort of effort and focus that you put into it to help build a strong and profitable business, you can also put into it to, help right that ship. Steffi, any questions or comments? Or next question, whichever you like.
Just a couple quick comments, of course. I think that we both find that so many of our clients, and you and I have had this conversation before in the past as well, that we get complacent sometimes and we take our eyes off the ball with the sales and marketing, but sometimes sales and marketing are a couple of those functions that are it's an everyday thing. We cannot take our eye off the ball with that one. We have to keep doing it every day, every month, it's a continual function.
Yeah, it definitely
right?
is. Yeah, you have to make sure that you keep your pipeline going. That's for darn sure.
Keep the pipeline going. There you go. All right, next question.
Okay.
You ready?
I am.
Have an opportunity to form a new business, but my potential partner is pretty tough to work with, and I am having second thoughts. Can you offer me any tips?
Yeah, I certainly have had lots and lots of opportunities to partner with businesses in some way. And I think this goes back to the comment we made earlier, is that if it's not fun and easy, if it's not fun and exciting, then we don't do it. Now, you may be, by the way, one of those special people that finds it pretty easy to deal with people who aren't necessarily easy to deal with. There are people out there like that seem to have just a Teflon personality to where nothing sticks to them. They don't really care. If the new partner's upset, going crazy, ranting and raving, they don't really care because they're so independent. They have such a strong sense of self-worth and such high emotional intelligence that they're able to deal with that stuff, effectively, and it doesn't slow them down. In fact, it may actually inspire them. If you see somebody else that's cantankerous, that gives you the opportunity to be the good cop, for example. That gives you the opportunity to step into supporting people in the way that you can support people. And I think some people actually find working with cantankerous and difficult people in some way inspiring and motivating to them. But that's really, really rare. Most of the time, if you've got somebody that's a real pill to work with, it takes away from your energy because you start to take it personally, because when they, yell at you and shout at other people and rant and rave and go into rages periodically, it can be, tough to deal with, and it's hard for the other people in the company. And that's the one thing that really gets me too, is it's, even if I can deal with it, I really hate to see somebody that's abusing other people, that's causing them to have a lot of tension and anxiety and stress because of their own anxiousness, that really in some way wants other people to be unhappy, wants other people to be upset because it somehow validates their being unhappy and their being upset. That to me, is got to be an even bigger decision criteria than whether or not they're difficult to work with from my perspective. And that is, how are they treating the other people in life? I couldn't ever work at a company, even at where I am in my development, if my business partner is being a jerk or worse and not really paying attention to and being compassionate and sensitive to and nurturing and caring about other people, then frankly, I'm not interested in working with them. So I encourage you to ask yourself those two questions. You know, is it fun? Is it easy? Is it exciting? Am I strong enough to deal with this jerk and still have a good time? To be able to get up in the morning and laugh and have a sense of peace of mind and deal with the stress that comes with that, you know, effectively? Is it just going to be water off my back? Um, or not? Is it causing me any issues? Because if it's causing you issues, then you may want to get out of that environment or get out of that, you know, situation before it even starts. I think you said that, you know, this was a possibility of a new relationship. But the bigger question is, do you want to work with somebody that treats other people poorly? And my answer is always no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work with people who don't have my sense of values and my sense of ethics and my passion towards personal growth and being the best person that they can be, and treating other people fairly and compassionately. So that's my encouragement to you too. If it's not fun, it's not easy, then don't do it. And if they're treating other people badly, just don't do it. Stephanie, any comments or next question?
Well, this next question is a little bit similar to some of the other ones, but she is asking if we can go into more detail. Actually, it was one of our clients that I was chatting with this week. We were talking about the uncomfortable conversations, and what frequently happens with her is she gets into conversations with her husband and her older kids who typically wear her down and can frequently bring her down with that very negative talk, and it's very challenging for her to have those kind of conversations with her family, with those kind of loved ones. Can you break that down a little bit and give her a little bit of advice on how to handle that?
Yeah, and I'm going to do it in a couple of different ways. Number one is you got to take care of yourself, because if you're not in the mood, you know, if you're not in your own power, so to speak, if you're in a very desperate place, you know, if you're really, really super angry, or if you're really super sad and you know, feeling a lot of victim energy, it may not be the time for that conversation. So if you're going to have an important conversation with somebody else, I usually recommend that you have an invitation to that. So you would say, hey, I really want to talk about this, but I want to talk about it when I'm in a good mood and you're in a good mood. Can we like set an appointment to talk about it? I've actually seen couples do that and families do that. You know, when you get home from work tonight, let's have a conversation about that. Or, you know, after the TV show, can we have this conversation? Or, you know, can we go for a walk and talk about this? You know, it's an invitation to have the conversation instead of a demand to have the conversation. Because if you go into the conversations with a whole bunch of warrior energy, you know, about I'm going to have my way or not, or I've got, you know, I need to tell you a thing or two, they're likely to respond with warrior energy instead of collaborative energy, which is what you really want. So number one, take care of yourself and put yourself in a good mindset to have an important conversation, and invite them to also have a positive mindset about that by asking, you know, are you ready to talk about this, or when can we talk about that? That can really be very, very, very helpful. And then I encourage you to watch Office Hours 117 last week on structured conversations, because it is possible for you to develop techniques of having structured conversations that really facilitate that communication process. And some of them require a reciprocation from the other person, such as the couples dialogue, and of course any of the facilitated processes and conversations we talked about last week. But some of them don't require that at all. You can employ the UCD method, the UCR method, the TCD method, the awakened conversation method, the compliment sandwich method, the compassionate communications or nonviolent communication methods. You can do those all on your own, as long as you know what the system is, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, or just step 1 and step 2, step 3. Many of them are just 3 steps, some of them are 4, and some of them are 5 steps. And if you practice those, you can have those conversations, and they really give you a sense of control over the communication process and a sense of control over yourself, because you, in some way, your conscious mind is controlling the process, and you're just not giving in completely to your emotions and giving in completely to your fears, because you have a step-by-step process that you're going through. And that gives you a sense of empowerment and a sense of control over the conversation and over the relationship and over the issue too, by having that structure that you can follow. So I encourage you to do that. So make sure that when it comes time to have those important conversations, that you're in the best place that you can possibly be, and then use one or more of those structured conversation processes in order to communicate effectively, and really get what needs to be said, and get what's needed to be discussed, so that you can expose that wound, explore possibilities for healing that, and deal with it and move forward. Hopefully that was helpful. Stephanie, any comments or another question?
That's the last question.
Awesome. Well, we have a few minutes. If any of you who are on the call today want to raise your hand and talk about anything else, you're welcome to do that. You can type a question into the GoToMeeting control panel, or that you can just raise your hand, because we'd be happy to answer your question if you have one. So we'll wait just a few minutes, and encourage you once again to take a look at our homepage at paulhoyt.com. There's a lot of free programs out there. If you haven't done the Business Survival Bootcamp yet, if you haven't taken the program on the 5 choices of winning CEOs, we strongly encourage you to do that. If you haven't browsed the library, we strongly encourage you to do that, because here in some point in time, you are going to have either a paid membership or to be a client of ours in order to have access to all of the previous office hours presentations. We'll probably leave up the top, the last 3 or 4 of them, but all the other ones are going to go back behind the curtain. So we encourage you to take advantage of all of those free presentations while they are there in the marketplace, and there and available to you, because we really do care about you. We care about your results. We want you to be very, very successful. Stephanie, I don't see any other questions coming through on the GoToWebinar control panel right now, so I guess we will leave it at that. If you or any of the people that you know would like to reach out, you can easily come and have a conversation with either Stephanie or I. We'd love to talk to you about how we can support you in growing your business, and support you in overcoming the blocks and obstacles and the crap that holds you down and ties you back, so that you can learn to fly, so that you can be the best person that you can be and enjoy life in the most wonderful way possible. And until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt and Stephanie May wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.